Hello everybody, I'm Lynn Scanella and welcome to my podcast, Fruitful Conversations, where we chat to people who share their stories, who can teach and inspire us to be better versions of ourselves. So the idea is that when you're at home tonight, you're unwinding, or maybe you're heading off to bed, you think about this podcast and maybe there is something that's really resonated with you, maybe something small, but it makes you think about doing something differently or thinking differently in order to be a better person. That's the idea anyway. For those of you who don't know me, and why would you, I live in the Northern Rivers of New South Wales. I love the ocean, I love to bake, and I am a very enthusiastic eater. And in order to put food on the table, I also do some speaking, I do some training, and I do some writing all around healthy, connected relationships. Now, my guest today is pretty special. I met Yvonne McClaren 20 years ago, must be, when we worked in the same building together. And with her wicked sense of humour and her zest for life, I have very fond memories of doing way too many tequila shots on sunny Sydney afternoons. None of that anymore, thank you very much. Yvonne has worked as an executive in the not-for-profit sector all her life, mainly around hospitality, and in her off time she indulges her love of food, wine, yoga and kickboxing. Now, a couple of years ago, Yvonne decided to take herself off to Vietnam for a bit of an adventure. The adventure didn't exactly pan out the way that she wanted. So let's pick the story up from here and meet Yvonne McClaren.
Good morning, Lynn.
Let's start with Vietnam. Now, what was the plan when you left Australia to live in Vietnam?
I had decided that I wanted to move back to Southeast Asia. I had lived there previously in Thailand. Mm-hmm. And I spent some time meditating on the back of a motorbike through a typhoon in Laos that gave me plenty of opportunity to have a think about what I was doing with my life. And my father had just passed away too, so I was kind of going through a range of things. But that's what I thought. I thought, you know what, I really want to come back here and live and work and experience something different. So hence I started planning, how am I going to achieve that? How am I going to do that? And what's that going to look like? And, you know, getting out of my job and renting out my apartment and doing something with my animals. And so it was a big decision. I wanted to travel and work.
Okay, and so did you have plans around work when you got there?
I had a loose idea that I was going to not teach English because I didn't actually think I could. Turns out I could have. I wanted to get back into hospitality. I wanted to do something with food tours, all that beautiful Vietnamese food. I just kind of felt that there was something in there that was where I was going to head. That's kind of
where it was. And you're classic. You're trained in hospitality, aren't you? You're a real foodie.
I
a good cook, kind of.
I actually started off in teaching, and because my father was superintendent of education here in South Australia, and my whole family are teachers, and then I realised I didn't like children very much. So probably wasn't the greatest career move for me. So I went into hospitality.
Okay. All right. So your whole adventure in Vietnam was cut short.
Yes.
What happened there? What brought you home?
I had an awful sore throat before I left. I was, it was middle of, it was dead winter in Australia, and I had this sore throat, which I'd had for about 6 months, and antibiotics hadn't worked. I thought, it's stress. It's trying to get my mother sorted out. It's trying to, I'll be right once I get into the warmer weather, and it didn't ever go away. In fact, it got worse. So my first sort of 3 months in Vietnam was spent at a expatriates hospital, trying all sorts of things. Nasal sprays, humidifiers, anti-inflammatories, and I thought something is just not right. So I did my first visa run. I had to come back, so I flew to Indonesia actually, and I was lying around the pool having a beer. And I thought, something's just not right. I'm going to go home. One of my family members had a heart attack, and I thought I better go home for that as well, see what's going on. And I came home to Australia for what I thought was going to be a tonsillectomy. and it turned out to be something a little more sinister. Yeah, so I don't know whether you want me to go launch into that or whether you'd like to.
There's no better time to launch into it. For our listeners, let me just say up front, what Yvonne faced was not a tonsillectomy. Yvonne had from her throat, they had a huge tumour removed, a third of a tongue, 30 lymph nodes, and both tonsils. So it was an entirely different prospect for you, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. I mean, I was very fortunate that I'd retained my health insurance for anyone who's thinking of getting rid of it, because it got me in to see a really good surgeon and it got me in very quickly. So, yes, it essentially changed my life. I mean, I used to work in the wine industry. I was a foodie, and the whole operation and diagnosis, if you like, meant that I was unable to eat via my mouth essentially for 15 months. That was a bit of a shock, I can tell you. Like, what do you mean 15 months? No cups of tea, and the only thing I ever wanted was a cup of tea and a piece of toast. That was it. Got to that basic sort of level. So
you're saying you couldn't eat solids for 15 months? Nothing. Was that something that you were prepared for when you went in for surgery?
No, they don't tell you. And the reason they don't tell you is because everyone's so different. Everyone's so unique in how they respond to the treatment, how they respond to eating or not eating. And I think they only feed you bits as you need to know because it's such an overwhelming journey and process. And I think as a human, if you're given all that detail, you just go,
yeah. I think you're right. I think that when you're given a diagnosis like that, anyone that has ever been told they've got cancer of any sort, your world goes into a bit of a spin and you can't take everything in at the one time, really. So let's just go back a bit. When you woke up in hospital, then not being prepared for a lot of stuff, what were your thoughts?
I was in intensive care for, I think it was about 12 days before they even moved me to the ward. And I woke up opposite when you get the really good bed, opposite the nurse's station. And
one where you can't sleep all night.
You can't hear, yeah, well, anyway. And I can just remember that these nurses coming past and going, "Are you all right? Do you want anything?" And I couldn't talk. I'm like, I don't know. And at that stage, they were feeding me intravenously, of course, and I had a nasal feeder which went through your nose and down to your stomach. And I think now that I look back, I think I was just in shock, to be honest. I really didn't know what had hit me. I actually thought I was going to be back at my outdoor fitness class within a couple of weeks doing, no.
Wow.
So, and I also remember being incredibly frightened. I didn't know it. I didn't know what the feeling was at the time, but looking back, I was really scared and I was craving human touch because I hadn't seen family or friends and no one could come in to see me. So, often a nurse would come and put their hand on my arm or something and, just give me a hug. That's all I need.
Wow. Isn't that an interesting thing, how much we as humans crave touch?
And it really was that. And that was to become a bit of a recurring theme throughout my treatment.
Right. So, Yvonne, I am really conscious then when you have when you live with someone, a partner, you come out of a situation like yours and you've got not only physical but emotional support. So you're on your own. How on earth did you manage when you got home?
I thought I was made of pretty tough stuff on the back of a motorbike going through a typhoon in the middle of nowhere, particularly when the headlight blew up on the bike. We couldn't see anything. I'm made of tough stuff, and I think it really teaches you how resilient you can be and how strong you can be. And look, I always knew I was a fairly strongly opinionated and strong-minded person anyway, but I almost became religious and became more so spiritual in the sense that I realised that this has happened to me for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
And I, rather than go down that horrible track of, oh, why the shit is this happening to me? I thought,
Yeah.
why is this happening to me? What is
Yes.
this trying to teach me? So that's what got me through in the end. I grabbed
Really?
hold of that and I thought,
So you never thought, why me? Like,
I did. Oh,
because
yeah.
it seems particularly cruel for this to happen to a foodie and a very good cook.
Yeah, look, and I still have my days when I just wake up some days and go, oh, really? This is what I've got to do.
Yeah.
So it makes other world problems, as what I used to see them,
Yeah.
pale in significance to this.
Yeah, sure.
And yeah, look, you have two choices. You curl up in the corner in the hurt locker, or you go, all right, well, this is what life's dealt me, then how do we make the best of this situation? So,
And you said that you found increased spirituality. Can I dig into that a little bit more?
yeah.
Explain to me how, because everyone defines spirituality in a slightly different way, I think.
Yes. I was always reasonably spiritual in the sense of I'd consider myself Buddhist now, and I have been that for probably 30 years, I guess. Roman Catholic born and bred, but I very much follow a Buddhist way of living, and I think I had to really look deeply into myself. And I knew before all this happened that there were some issues in my life that I wasn't very happy with. And I thought, you know what? And it was all about me being frightened. So my spirituality has brought about a calmness and a fearlessness too. Like, what's the worst possible thing that can happen?
I love that fearlessness. I was going to ask you because it seems like this you only finished your treatment 15 months ago, so this is all quite new and probably, I'm sure, quite raw. But I'm seeing you, and we'll talk about the food manifesto in a little bit, but I'm seeing you just go ahead via Instagram on leaps and bounds. So apart from fearlessness, what are the other traits that you think has really driven you forward?
I think it's given... I think because my decision in my life not to have children, not to get married, and they're all very much conscious decisions on my behalf.
Just as well, seeing as you hate children.
I mean, I find cats inconvenient too, but I think because I'd made those conscious decisions, but I hadn't actually thought about the ramifications of those decisions later on in life.
Good point.
And thinking that I would be with another person, and as it turned out, I'm not. So it had to make me find a purpose, a real purpose, and it did. It's really defined who I'm going to be and who I'm going to become.
Yeah.
And in that, I think that's where my business has also helped me enormously. So, yeah, that's what it's really done, is given me a life purpose too. So that's the silver lining, I guess.
There is always a silver lining, but boy, in some situations you got to dig hard to find it. That's for sure. Let's skip back a little bit, because I'm interested in, maybe because I love food myself, I'm devastated to hear that with an operation like that, it was 15 months that you were on liquids. Is that right?
So I had a peg feeder tube inserted into my stomach, and I used to pump liquid through that pump in my stomach. And
so I fortunately have never had experience with a peg. Can you just explain it a little bit?
A peg is a plastic tube that they cut a hole in the bottom of your stomach, and it feeds through to your stomach, and it has a base on it so that it doesn't fall out of your stomach. And on the other end is a container that you literally pump food into, and that drains straight into your stomach. So you avoid any sort of swallowing or mouth usage at all. So you basically drink little bottles of sugar, essentially it is, and you have to do that about 8 times a day.
What? So 8 little bottles of sugar and nutrients?
Yeah, nutrients.
What, you put a syringe or something into?
Yep, so you use a syringe and you syringe it up and syringe it in, syringe it up and syringe it in. And for me, I also had to do my medication that way too, because I wasn't able to swallow tablets or vitamin E. I've since discovered can't swallow them because of the scarring in my throat. I've got a ledge. That means everything sits on that ledge and I have to sort of jump on my right foot and tilt my head to the right to get things down, which is quite hysterical sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes. I'm sure you're not laughing all the time.
Wow. And they, my surgeon said to me, look, I think you better have a peg put in. And I went, yeah, no worries, not knowing for a moment what that was or what that would mean. And it hurt a lot, and it meant you couldn't roll over and sleep, you couldn't swim, you couldn't get it wet, you couldn't, there was a range of things that went with that. That really pissed me off, I'll be honest. Sorry about my swearing, but...
You're not the first on this show. People just get sneaks through every now and again.
I was determined to get rid of that peg. They told me I possibly wouldn't be able to, but...
So they told you might have to live with this, for the rest of your life?
Yeah, and I said no.
No, right, okay. So at what point did you go, enough with the peg, I don't want the peg, I want some food? What did you do?
Well, look, I tried to, but they being your medical team, and you do have a medical team, an oncologist, a radiotherapist, a speech pathologist, they say unless you can maintain your weight for a month by not using your peg, they won't let you take it out. So as it happened, mine fell out and I had to take myself into hospital in an ambulance at 3 a.m. in the morning, and it actually fell out of my stomach. It had disintegrated, and I told them not to put it back in. And unless they do put it back in the track within 15 minutes, the hole closes over in your stomach.
Right.
So, yes, I put myself under a bit of pressure. I went, right, let's give it a go. So,
So this would seem like a natural segue into your business, the Food Manifesto. Tell me about your transition into real food, normal food. Well,
well, look, like everyone, I Googled things I shouldn't have Googled, but I did. And I noticed that there wasn't a lot of information anywhere or in a consistent format that actually told me how to start eating again. Because it's like any muscle, if you don't use it for a while, it disappears. You lose the ability. Swallowing is one of those things that we just all take for granted. And so I actually got the help of a showgirl from Las Vegas who had also been through a similar, in fact, she's in a much worse scenario than I am. She said to me, Yvonne, you've got to just start drinking smoothies. Put some green in, get off that artificial stuff.
Yeah.
So that's what I did. I went, right, well, and I hate smoothies. But it was the only way I could start to eat real food, and I had to vitamise it and swallow it. And that way, so that's what I did.
So you taught yourself to swallow again, effectively.
Yeah, pretty much.
I bet there's a bit of trial and error involved with that.
Lots, because you actually lose the ability to open your mouth too. Most adults can get 3 fingers in their mouth. I got down to 1 finger, and I then had to have a stack of those paddle pop sticks, and it's like a card jack. I just kept winding up the number of paddle pop sticks until I could get my mouth open enough to put a spoon or fork in my mouth. That was very painful. That was not fun. But again, I had to teach myself all that, and I thought, well, if I don't do it, then everything's going to sort of solidify and not move. So, so I thought, well, there's a bit of a need for this for other people, I suspect. Yeah.
Your cancer comes under head and neck cancer, I believe, which you affectionately called neckers.
Neckers.
Which sounds quite, I don't know.
Redneck, doesn't it? Yeah.
No, I just feel, I feel like it's more disrespectful. But I think when you have cancer, you have to laugh. So neckers is fine. So tell me, how many neckers are there in the world? Is this a really common thing, this sort of cancer?
I think it's becoming more common then. I knew nothing about it. I mean, I have to say, I'm an ex-smoker. I'm an ex-drinker now as well, because alcohol just tastes like rocket fuel, wine especially. Although
didn't you work for the Wine Association?
Yeah, I know. It's terrible. It just tastes like rocket fuel to me now.
Wow.
Apparently that can come back, but I have discovered that I can drink whiskey, so not all is lost.
Well, maybe it is.
There's a lot of people. Yes, look, this is a cancer that they can now immunise you against.
Wow.
Because it's caused by the HPV virus, which is a human papilloma virus. And something was wrong with my immune system. Obviously, it was down. And most people have cancerous cells in their body. It's just that your immune system deals with it.
Yes, understand.
For those that have an immune system that's compromised, you get cancer pretty much. So, but yes, people are diagnosed all the time. Tends to happen more in men than women, apparently.
Okay, and have you got any numbers around that? Like how many?
Look, I don't. I think worldwide there's about 5,000 to 10,000 diagnosed every day with this.
Okay.
All right. So understand somewhere
in a population of what, 7 billion, it's still relatively rare.
Yeah, we'd have a couple of hundred in Australia daily.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So tell me, after the smoothies, you've experimented, I know, with some other recipes. So
everyone's a bit different, Lynn. I'm lucky. I can swallow rice and I can swallow couscous. A lot of people can't do that. They have to stay on a sort of a liquid diet for some time. Mm-hmm. I'm a bit of a believer that give something a red hot go, and if it doesn't work this week, it might work again next week.
Yeah.
So yes, I think my go-to food was lemon delicious pudding swamped in cream. Yes, it was rather nice. Now, I wasn't a big dessert eater prior to this, and unfortunately, I've had to go. But fortunately, unfortunately, I've had to go back to it. But that's how I started eating some more solidified food.
Excellent.
And I just kept trying different things. I love anchovies. I love chili. I love garlic. I love ginger. And different cuisines. That was my, how I got to it. How do I go?
Okay, so you sort of made the transition into anything pureed or anything that you can turn into a liquid. Yes. Tell me how the Food Manifesto started.
The Food Manifesto started back in about 2016. I was actually I was in Thailand at the time, and I just thought, I just want to build a membership for people that love food and want to eat good food. And I just knew that there was a bit of a gap in the market for people who didn't know how to make soup, stock. Right. It's amazing what you think, surely everybody knows how to do that, but no, they don't. But I never really had the purpose. I didn't have the point of difference, if you like.
Yeah.
And I think it suddenly dawned on me when I was languishing in hospital that, there's a lot of people out there that are not going to know how to make a really good, nutritious stock soup, and that's all that they're going to be able to eat. How do you I know people have difficulty transitioning from a peg to mouth. Mm-hmm. So do you love all my sign language while I'm doing this? For those that aren't watching. So I sort of found my niche, and the more I researched it, there's just nothing out there that's all in one spot to answer all those questions.
Great.
About keeping yourself positive too, and exercise and yoga and meditation and fresh air and all those things. Yeah.
So how did you get back then to, let's go back, because I know that you love kickboxing and yoga. Kickboxing in particular, well, both actually are really strenuous exercises. How did you get your body back to that level of fitness that you felt that you could do it again?
I was reasonably fit before this hit me, which I think put me in a good position as well. And I lost all up about 25 kilos. At my lowest weight, I was really too skinny.
Wow.
But I've since built that up by 10 kilos. And I was really fortunate that I had some wonderful personal trainers here in Adelaide who basically just took me by the hand and said, come on, come out with us, even if you just stand there and do nothing. And
that's great.
They supported me and helped me. One of them helped me, Anki helped me get fit again, and Mike helped me eat again. They just wouldn't let it go. They were like little terriers at me, and if I didn't have that, I wouldn't have, perhaps wouldn't have done it as quickly as I did.
You need a support. You need a support group. That's
You do.
And you're lucky enough to have a wide network who love you.
Yeah.
What do you, because we've talked about that before, what do you look for, or what do you think are the most important qualities in a friend? Because you've tested your friends over the last couple of years.
Sure. That's a really good question. I think you find that when you go through something like this, there are people that are just going to naturally fall away because they don't know how to deal with it. They don't know how to deal with your potential death. They don't know how to deal with the change in your personality and who you've become as a consequence of what you're going through.
Sure.
So I guess a bit like natural progression, they just fall away, and the good and true friends stay with you, and they help you through, and they're still with you through your next little part of your journey. So
I'm reading Lee Sales' book at the moment, Any Ordinary Day, and there's a lot of research in there that says this is a very normal and human thing to do when tragedy strikes or something difficult happens, that many people they're protecting themselves. They don't know what to say and they don't know how to cope. So it's easier to ignore. And for anybody listening, don't ever do that. If someone, just don't do it. If someone is in pain or if someone has a terrible, terrible tragedy, you don't have to, you can't actually help them, but you can. In my mind, I just think it would be terrible to have that ignored. It's much better off to say, I am so sorry. I probably can't help you at all. I just want to let you know I'm here for you.
Yeah, and and you're quite right, Lynn. It's more about them than actually yourself when you're in that situation, for sure. Yeah.
But back to friends, I asked you about the qualities that you think are most important to you in friends, because when I was preparing your interview, I was thinking myself, and one of the things that I came up with, which might get you started, is I actually appreciate not being judged. Yeah, I really, the friends who don't judge me and just take me for who I am, that's something I'm grateful for.
That you covet, yes, absolutely. And I'd agree with that. And I think too, one of the things that has become very apparent to me now is, and we always say it, but we very rarely do it, don't spend time with people who bring you down. Don't spend time with people who give you the shits. Don't spend time with people who suck the living life out of you, either emotionally or physically or spiritually. And I now really understand what that means.
For sure.
I now very much spend time with people who lift me up, who can have a laugh with me, because I've got a sense of humour that also helped me get through a lot of this time, and that's part of my father, I think, coming out in me.
Nice.
It's a bit Irish and a bit Scottish too. You have a bit of a joke about it.
Well, the Scots are really strong, and the Irish think everything is hilarious. So it's a good combination.
It's a win-win for me. But look, certainly, I think it's about surrounding yourself with people who lift you up, support you, and encourage you to follow your dream, really. And I'm all too aware of how short life is, and I think until you've gone through something like this, it's kind of gave me a good kick up the bum. I'll be honest.
I would say that's an understatement, young lady. An understatement indeed.
Yeah,
now listen, being out of corporate life, I mean, you were a very dedicated worker who loved, as long as I've known you, who've loved their work. How has being out of that type of life impacted you?
I've struggled with that a bit. And I think in many ways, Lynn, I'm still getting my head around the fact that I will probably never say never, because I've learned that, a week can be a really long time. I think because I've been in and out of corporate life and in and out of government and in and out of non-profit and in and out of food, and I've built a skill base that allows me to sort of dabble around in bits and pieces all the time. Mm-hmm. But I do know now that I'm not prepared to put myself through the pressure any longer, because I don't think it's healthy. No job is worth your health.
No, it is not. Boys and girls, listen to Auntie Yvonne. It is
exactly.
not. Too many of us suffer from that. I've got to be busy. I've got to be working 24/7. It's a badge of honour thing. No, garbage. Just see you later.
Exactly.
Okay, so have you? This might be a weird question because you've been so ill, but have you lost a level of confidence with dealing in the workplace, or are you still cool with that? You've always been a really confident person.
I have lost a lot of confidence, actually. My speech is altered, obviously. There's small things that I can't do anymore. I can't, sounds really strange, I can't kiss my cats on the top of the head any longer because of the removal of part of my tongue. You can't do certain I can't whistle with my fingers anymore. So when I get to New York, I'm not going to be able to whistle for a cab.
That cab?
Really annoying.
That's all right. You can live without that one.
Absolutely. My confidence took a huge, from a figuratively point of view,
yeah, sure.
From an appearance point of view, from a speech point of view, audible. But in many ways, it's also made me a lot more confident too, like things body image, skin, all those things that we all worry about.
All those things that women worry about in particular. I don't
care anymore.
No, I wouldn't either. I just think, you're happy to be here, and that's a really good thing, and we're happy to have you here. Now, I want to talk a little bit about Food Manifesto. So it is, I know it's still in, it's shifting a little bit, I think, through your illness and through your recovery, but essentially it's a community. You started it, well, you didn't start it, but now it's a community for other cancer sufferers. Is that right?
It is. My main purpose of being with the Food Manifesto now is to help other head and neck cancer patients transition off that peg, whether it's stomach or nasal, I guess, back to eating real food again, and helping them with how to create that food. I'm not a dietitian, I'm not a nutritionist, but I know enough, and I have a great enough interest in food to know, how to eat more protein, how to eat a range of vitamins and minerals across the day. So that's what I've set it up for, to help people and help them build their culinary skills, should they be alone. Or even if it's a carer that's looking after someone with head and neck cancer, just to give them some inspiration and some support and some help.
But it sounds also, I'm sorry, please go on.
No, it's all right. And the funny thing is that other people who have joined the community are people who don't have head and neck cancer, who are just looking for some basic culinary support, which I also do. So,
well, that's what I was going to say. It sounds like it's something that culinary support could probably extend to a lot more people than simply the cancer sufferers.
Absolutely.
And now, I know you've also got a cookbook in the making. Lovely name. Is it easy follow, easy swallow?
Correct. And
I like that very much.
I'm just putting the finishing touches to that, and it's sort of morphed into a bit of a lifestyle. Here's my story and recipes and
Excellent.
how to all in one. So we're just putting some finalised detail around how that's going to look visually at the moment.
Great. Well, I'll be waiting for that and looking out for the lemon delicious recipe.
Yes,
because
that's in there.
you can't get enough of that stuff. Okay, so what I'll do is put in the show notes, I'll put your details where people can get in touch with you. And perhaps if they email you, Yvonne, they could pre-order a book as well,
Sure.
because I think it'll be have a much broader appeal than the one you're simply intending it for. Especially, with COVID, everyone has learned to cook, is learning to cook better and different things and spending more time in the kitchen and, all that sort of stuff. So
I think it's a great thing.
I think it's a great thing too. I love to see it when people are doing more and cooking more and having afternoon tea and baking and all those things that make you feel really good. I saw a nice poster the other day. I might have bought it, in fact, after a couple of glasses of wine. It said, "Baking because murder is wrong." It's right up my alley, baby.
Yes, I'm just going to whip up a loaf of banana bread.
That's right. So to people who may be on the cancer journey or through other serious illness, or even just having, a pretty hard time at the moment, as someone who is marching forward in leaps and bounds and oozing confidence and determined not to be beaten, what's your advice? What's the advice you would give?
I think never, ever underestimate how strong you can be when the chips are down, and never underestimate how much it can hurt, but there's always the upside. And I think for me, don't wallow in that self-pity too long. You've got to pick yourself up and you've got to go for a walk, get that fresh air, do that exercise and feed your body and your mind in a positive way, I think. And that takes training and that takes commitment. Yeah. And, that's what I'd suggest.
Well, that is great advice. And I think when I spoke to you last time, you quoted a really nice phrase that Michael Douglas had come up with.
Yeah. Michael Douglas had he was a necker. I'm sure Michael wouldn't mind me saying that to him. Michael Douglas famously quoted, "Cancer didn't bring me to my knees, it brought me to my feet." And that really resonated with me because it certainly has brought me to my feet, I think. So, yeah.
Well, you're a great example of that, Yvonne McClaren. Thank you so much. I think you really rock, and I think you are a rock. Thanks for being here.
You're welcome. Thanks.
Well, there's one impressive chickie babe right there, hey? Yvonne says don't underestimate yourself when you're faced with crisis. And I often wonder, how do we cope when we're faced with things that we've never faced before that are really difficult? Well, maybe we're all a bit more resilient than we think. And if we look at Yvonne, she's a wonderful example of human resilience to all of us. I hope you got a little pearl out of today's podcast, something that you can take away and think about as you lay your head on your pillow tonight. I certainly did. There's lots that I'll be reflecting on over the next few days, I'm sure. But one thing that really sort of punched me in the face was this. Next time I'm feeling a bit whingy or a bit whiny, all I have to do is remember that I can have a cup of tea and toast whenever I want. Now, if you'd like more information on Yvonne, head to her website, thefoodmanifesto.com, where you'll get info on her work and her recipes and her forthcoming cookbook, Easy Follow, Easy Swallow. And if you'd like information on me, head to my website, lynscanella.com.au, where you'll find a lot of stuff on fruit and personalities and working and living with people that you just don't get. Now, it's been lovely to have you with us today. If you like what you've heard, I would love you to head over to Apple Podcasts and leave a review or share. Definitely subscribe so you don't miss out on anything. And it would be really nice maybe if you just tell a friend, because we'd love to grow our fruity community. Now, don't forget to respect each other, connect and thrive. I'm Lynn Scanella, and this has been Fruitful Conversation.